This is the Bizgnus Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Jeffrey Martinovich is a builder of sorts, not the kind that uses hammer and saw, but rather a builder of his life and reputation. Perhaps we should say rebuilder. An Air Force veteran of the First Gulf War and founder of a billion-dollar wealth management firm, Mr. Martinovich's career hit a bit of a detour, going into federal prison. He joins us for this Bizgnus Podcast interview and explains what happened. Jeff, before we get into the interesting and provocative title of your new book and what it's about, we need to have you give our viewers and listeners background about yourself. How did you get to where you are today, and what has happened?
Well, it's been quite a interesting last decade, I guess. But I've been very fortunate in my life, and I went to the United States Air Force Academy. I was in the Air Force during the First Gulf War. And when I got out of the Air Force, I got into the finance world and was fortunate to have a little bit of success, as your business channel knows, by working 20 hours a day. And so was real fortunate to build up a firm. It turned into, over about 20 years, we had about 100 people, 3,000 clients. We raised $1 billion, and we did a whole comprehensive level of mortgages and investment banking and financial planning and all those things. And then we ran into the buzzsaw of the 2008 financial crisis, which was quite a challenge. We survived that, although it was very painful. But afterwards, the regulators and the government had gone around and they shut down. You know, they never shut down anybody on Wall Street, and those are all those big relationships they have. But they did go around and shut down a few thousand, what we call tier 2 firms, smaller brokerage firms like us. And so what they had accused us of mispricing a security in one of our hedge funds. And this was at that time of Bernie Madoff and all that wild time, terrible time. And we said, no, we didn't make a mistake and we didn't do anything wrong. And so it was a very strange time. And I made a decision to not accept these settlements and not accept the plea agreements, 3 different ones. And I went to trial against the United States government to defend our company and our employees and myself. And as 98.5% of all those trials end, I lost. And so I went from, running $1 billion firm to being sentenced to 14 years in prison. And it was a crazy story. And so the whole time I thought, this can't be happening. We'll overturn this. We'll rebuild our firm, take care of all of our shareholders. And it just kind of kept spiraling and snowballing. And through a lot of hard work then in the prison law library, is I had to represent myself, but I taught myself federal criminal law the best I could. And I was very fortunate to reverse my case twice, and then also for 2 of the federal judges to be removed from my case. And 7 years later, with COVID and all these different changes we made, I made it back home last year to home confinement and the transition back, hopefully, out of everything. So it has been a wild ride. I'm incredibly fortunate to be here and be out and be all the new books and the new consulting we're doing. But so you didn't think you'd get a story like that today, did you?
No, we actually didn't, although we had done some background research on you, as we do with every guest. What are you doing now? And surely you could not rebuild your financial business with that conviction.
Right. Again, just very lucky. The second day that I got home, a couple of previous business associates flew out and they said, "Oh, we're glad you're back. We've got all these things we've got to get done and rebuild." And many previous shareholders, clients, friends came and wrapped me into many different opportunities. And they really stuck by me through this whole event. And again, it's just another incredible thing I have no explanation for. But what we're doing now is we have a couple different consulting firms, and I like to help people grow businesses. I love to deal with small businesses and the owners. And, that's what builds America, and that's what pays the taxes, and that's what keeps it going. And that's my love. And so right now we're building a couple commercial businesses, but also 2 different businesses in the defense world, aerospace, supporting the Air Force, some of my Air Force Academy buddies. And we're building a couple of those companies right now. We've merged 4 of them together. So lots of different projects, and just trying to do as much productivity every day to keep making forward progress back.
Now, for our listeners and viewers, you have written a book with a very strange title. Please tell us about it.
Well, the title is Just One More. And it really started with a little bit of a joke. Years ago, the honest story is that we owned part of a bistro, nice restaurant bar here in Norfolk, downtown Norfolk. And it's a great place. It's still there today. And that was kind of our watering hole where we solved the problems of the world and did a lot of business. And so the joke would be, just one more, but then I got to go. And then it really morphed into more of a metaphor about all these lessons that I've kind of been through, especially through this last decade. It's like, just one more lesson, just one more challenge, just one more time to get back off the canvas. Because when you do finally get through something like we've just went through, there's thousands and thousands of days of disappointment and despair. And you just have to keep getting up, and it's all about perseverance and resilience. And so that's why I thought it might be a good title for the type of lessons that we were trying to portray through the book.
You have a character in there by the name of Bob. Tell us about that.
I do. Bob Vukovich is a funny kind of character. I'm always asked, like, is Bob a true person? He's not really a true person. His life in the book does seem to mirror the struggles that I've been through over the last 10 years. But also, he's kind of an amalgamation of many different mentors in my life. I've been really lucky through sports and the military, my father, were really just great mentors. And I think one thing that a lot of people miss is the opportunity to have that grandfather that gives us that wisdom and that advice and tries to help us live, a better life, and maybe a life of more class and grace, things that we might not get exposed to normally, in this hassle, everyday kind of world. And so he's really a little bit of everything, trying to take that young Cole Johnson under his wing and teach him about 15 different lessons by the end of that narrative.
Now, how did you manage to get up off of the mat yourself? I mean, surely being convicted on federal crime is a bit of a downer.
Yes, it was an amazing shock. And I was very naive, and I probably still am very naive, that, I just believed that if we went through the process, we would tell our story and everything would be fine. And that's just not how the real world works. And I should have been more pragmatic, more realistic, most likely. But also I believe, there are times in our lives when we need to make a stand. And it, that's what life's about. We didn't come down here to have a job, retire, go fishing, and then, so we felt like we needed to stand for something. And a lot of people say I made the totally wrong decision, and they may be totally correct. And, but again, I think I'd make the same decision again. And when you do that, it's, if you stay true to your character, true to what you believe, even when the whole world is raining down on you and you're on the front page of the newspaper day after day after day, and everybody, believes whatever's in the newspaper, you have to have some true north. You have to have something in your center that says, you know what, I'm just going to keep trying to be positive. I'm going to try to keep being productive. I'm going to get up today and try to get stronger every day. And the way I did it is when I was in prison, I said, I'm going to get stronger every single day in 3 areas. One is physically, because it's quite a grind. Secondly, intellectually. And thirdly, emotionally, spiritually. And by the end of the day, if I believe I made just, this much progress in each of those 3 areas, I'm going to be better tomorrow. And that was my little secret to just get through each day.
Where did the positive feedback come from in that setting? Because you're dealing with a bunch of people who, if we are to believe what we see on TV, are rather unsavory.
Well, I think I've been very fortunate in my upbringing and my exposure and my education. And a lot of people certainly don't get that, as we all know. So I think at a very core, we're all pretty much the same. And so if you can see through a lot of that, there were some really great gentlemen that I got to know that I was able to help in the law library, which then in turn helped me greatly, with my cases. If I wouldn't have helped them, I never would have learned all those things that ultimately saved myself. So there are spots of shining, of light in the darkness, but you're right. A lot at the end of the day, it comes down to you have to say, even though you may have people helping you, you need rugged individualism. You need to take responsibility for your own success. I'm a big believer that God helps those who help themselves. So a lot of things have to come together for you to stay positive there. But it's Tony Robbins says you just got to visualize it first and feel that emotion, and then the action will be secondary from that.
Playing those Tony Robbins tapes in your cell might have been a little strange, don't you think?
That's right. I couldn't get any Tony Robbins tapes in my cell. And actually, one of the blogs I had written before, I remember writing, on the itinerary in prison, you don't go to a lot of Tony Robbins seminars. But I did have the Wall Street Journal in there. My beautiful wife would send it to me. And so that kept me a little sane for at least a few hours every day.
As you look back on that time when you were on the canvas, so to speak, what's the most important single lesson that you took from it?
Well, I've actually had that question a few times. And when I really think about it, I believe, not to be too dramatic about this, but we as human beings, we need to deep down inside, we need to believe, or we need to have someone believe in us that we're a good person, that we're trying to do the right thing. And I think what happens is when we lose that, either in ourselves or we don't have anybody to be there with us, then we start not making the effort, not caring, doing all the wrong things. And so I think the most important thing is to believe in ourselves. And, you can give ourselves the oxygen first before we give it to the rest of the people on the airplane. And then we can be a better person to everybody else. But we have to believe in ourselves. We have to have some reason to say, you know what, this may be terrible, but eventually I'm going to be all right. And I think you need to believe in some grand design, that there's got to be a reason for this, that there's got to be something behind this. And if I just keep doing the right thing, giving it all the effort, collapse on my metal bunk at the end of the night, get up again and do it tomorrow, it's eventually going to be okay.
That's pretty tough for anybody to do, even if they are on a soft pillow bed, let alone a stiff bunk paid for by the taxpayers.
Right.
How did you manage to do that day after day after day? Give us some examples. Surely you didn't get up in the morning thinking about that, did you?
Well, I think you have to. I believe in, when I do a lot of my consulting and coaching and in sports and in business, I think we need to make ourselves stronger just inch by inch in the little daily things we do. If we sit on the couch all day and we don't get more intelligent, stronger, more resilient. When these big challenges come, then we just cannot handle it. And what you see is there's a very small fraction of people that can handle this huge, all these problems going on. You know, they have this brain compartmentalization that allows them to do it, while somebody else right next to them may have the smallest problem of the day, but you know, they're the drama queen and the whole world blows up and they can't do anything. So I think that comes from just keeping our tactical strategy every day, get more things done on our to-do list, get in better shape, get more knowledgeable, learn, be kinder, okay? All these type of things. And then those people, when they're slammed in the side and the black swan comes down the river and gives them this terrible event, they can handle it better. And I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of training and have a lot of exposure to a lot of problems. I mean, and I tell my wife, Ashley, is that, hey, the more successful we become, the more problems we have, right? That's just how the world works. And so everybody thinks it's the other way around. So I think it's all learned behavior. And that's what I try to do with all my clients.
What would Jeff be like today had Jeff not had this little interaction with the federal prosecutors?
Right. A lot of people assume that, boy, you go through something like this and you find religion and you turn your life around and now you're just a super person. Well, the truth of it is a lot of those people that went through that were super people to begin with, okay? Before that, we see movies like Wolf of Wall Street and all these kind of terrible things going on. And the great part of that is in the financial world, I love that business. I think it's one of the greatest industries on the planet, because what you're doing is if you help other people do better in their life and their financial world, you have an opportunity to make a lot more money also. So it's a very win-win, sitting on the same side of the table type of business. And 99% of the people in that business are really great people. I mean, great people. And I was fortunate that early in my career, I was able to work for some really smart people that really did business right. So that's how I view the world. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't make this big change, doesn't really change me, hopefully, fundamentally as a person, but it does, of course, give me great gratitude and thankfulness for being home, for being with my family. One thing that is a little bit hard, for being the old gentleman that I am, I actually, 4 weeks ago, we had a brand new baby, little Carly, joined us, and she is an incredible blessing. My son, Cole, who works with me now, is 27. And so now we have a 4-week-old. And so we're all doing this together. And so it's been a miracle. And I'm just incredibly fortunate.
Just a couple more questions, if you don't mind. And one is that people who write books don't necessarily write them because they expect to make $1 million or have Hollywood calling them on the phone. Why did you write this book, and what do you hope to get out of it?
Great question. I had written a business book, which is in publication, and we're still working on getting it finished. I call it Icarus, 0 to $1 billion to 0. So about 25 chapters are about how to build $1 billion company, but about 15 chapters are about how to not make all the dumb mistakes that I made. And so what I hope to do is help other business leaders, other people, entrepreneurs, to learn from the good parts of that story, but also to really learn from the bad parts of that story. But while doing that, I had these extra 15 lessons, which I thought, they're not really business book lessons. They're more about life lessons. And I really wanted to communicate to the readers. And I've been very lucky to be exposed to people who taught me those lessons. And so that's why we started this other book. Then, as you know, most people learn best through storytelling. And so I thought, this should really be a narrative or a narrative nonfiction or a parable. And certainly not to the levels of The Alchemist or something like that, but in that vein. And so that's how the story really took on its own life. And we slipped in these lessons. It's one of those, as my dad used to say, if you're not careful, you just might learn something before this is all over.
What would you like to add that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
Well, I think another theme of Bob Vukovich and in that book, it's very pro-business and very pro-capitalism and very pro-United States. And, that's not maybe so in vogue today in the news, depending on what news channel you may watch. And I want to, stress that, with our clients and the businesses that we've built, I used to tell all my rookie brokers, hey, if you want to save the world, you can do it even a lot easier with $1 million in your pocket. And so I think if you align goodness with strong work ethic and good business and all the right things, and you can align people's interests. Adam Smith in Wealth of Nations talked about, people work in their own self-interest. And as long as you understand that and you align things for the greater good, but also to help the individual, you can do some amazing things. I mean, we raised $1 billion in a small blue collar town in Virginia that everybody told us that's impossible. And, we had 3,000 clients in 46 states and 5 countries. And everybody said, that's impossible from this small town in Virginia. And so that's what I want Bob Vukovich and Just One More to convey is, that's really all the good stuff. And if people would think about it in a business view, in a capitalistic view, and aligning interest for the greater good, it's amazing the things that can happen.
Jeff, one last thing, and you must have a website, I'm suspecting.
I do. We have many different websites with multiple businesses, but my team has been kind enough to make one simple one. Is just my name. It's jeffmartinovich.com. And so that kind of everything flows out of there. So if anybody wanted to get any information on the books or the coaching or speaking or consulting, it can all come through there. I appreciate that.
Bob, Jeff, thank you very much. I almost called you Bob.
That's okay. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, but Bob's kind of my idol, and he's off to his new adventures at the end of the book, and so hopefully we all are.
So there comes a sequel. I see a sequel coming down the road.
That's right. There's rumor of a sequel.
You've been watching the Bizgnus Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.